Hello and welcome to the Fenway Victory Gardens. We're here today with Elizabeth Bertolozzi, president of Fenway Victory Gardens, for a special treat, a tour of the gardens in the fall as they get ready for winter. Elizabeth will take us through and show us a few highlights. We'll ask a few questions along the way. Take it away, Elizabeth.
Hi there, thank you. Welcome to the Victory Gardens. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the history of the Victory Gardens. We are the oldest continuously operating Victory Gardens in the United States. We are located on City of Boston parkland in the Back Bay Fens, and we are thoroughly enjoying the start of a beautiful fall. We are 7.5 acres located along the Emerald Necklace, and you might see that the season is really winding down as we walk through the gardens, but we've had a really productive year. The pandemic has posed some challenges, but what we found is that gardeners have really enjoyed their gardens, taken a lot more time in their gardens, and they really use the gardens as respite this year. So it's been like a little spot of paradise. The Victory Gardens were started in 1942 during World War II. It was an effort to raise food, and as a matter of fact, this Fenway Victory Gardens were one of 49 parcels in the city of Boston where citizens in Boston were raising vegetables. So not a lot of people know that, but for example, the plaza in front of Trinity Church in Copley Square was a Victory Garden. So at the end of the war, when federal funds for the program dried up, the city of Boston essentially went out and started taking back its parkland. So reverting a lot of these gardens, including the Boston Common, turning it back into parkland. And they came to the Victory Gardens here in the Fenway, and there were a couple of activist gardeners who apparently enjoyed growing vegetables in their backyards, and decided that they would sit down with the city and see if they could work out some type of arrangement to continue managing the space on City of Boston parkland. So Richard Parker, who is memorialized in our stone at the very front where the zinnias are, it was one of the individuals that really made that happen. So Fenway Victory Gardens have been in existence since 1942, and we have 500 gardens, and they're very generously sized community gardens. Each garden is approximately 15 by 25 feet. Most community gardens you end up with a raised bed. This is my third community garden, so it's a great area to do a lot of things. So we've got vegetable gardeners and folks who are growing flowers. We've got ponds. We're going to take a look at a couple of special gardens as we walk through. What you may notice is that people have already started pulling their annuals. We had a bit of cold weather last week and over the weekend, so rather than wait too long, we have gardeners who are working earlier to try to pull annuals and amend their soil and get their gardens ready for the winter. So we'll take a quick walk over here. This area here, this open area, is our grove and our meadow where the trees are. This is a space that we use for our harvest festival in the fall, and it is, it's a place of community. It's an opportunity for people to come out and, as you can see, enjoy their lunch, sit out on a beautiful day. We have some local schools that bring small groups that come out and have a little lunch al fresco. This is it's actually one of my favorite gardens here in the springtime, and one of the things you'll notice is if you visit the gardens in each season, it's really quite different and quite beautiful. So you'll see lilacs in the springtime, lilacs, wisteria, and then as we move into the spring, you'll see all the tulips and a lot of daffodils. We've got gardeners who are now planting tulips furiously. There are, as you can see, we have fruit here too, grapes on that trellis. Lots of roses. Some of these roses have already been spent for the season, so ready to do a bit of pruning. But as you can see, we have quite a few gardeners with beautiful dahlias.
Wow, look at those dahlias.
Beautiful dinner
plates.
And roses. So it really is quite pretty, and I think you couldn't have picked a better day to come out. So this is pretty special. You can still see there are gardeners who are harvesting. So you'll see the kale. There's some Brussels sprouts there, Swiss chard, and looks like somebody still has some tomatoes to harvest. There are you'll notice that a lot of gardeners have little seating areas or little quiet areas. Some gardens have small trees. You'll notice the little pond in the koi in this garden, which is really quite lovely. This is wisteria, which in the springtime will be quite spectacular.
Elizabeth, is there an open house once a year? Is there a way to go beyond the gates and see inside sometimes? Or are these only used privately by the gardeners themselves?
What we typically do, and there are two things that I encourage visitors to do. At any time of the year, they can come through, and gardeners love talking about the gardens and love talking about what's in their own gardens. So I encourage everyone to have a conversation, to come out on a weekend when a lot of gardeners are out watering or enjoying the gardens, and just learn a little bit about what their experience has been in terms of an open house. Typically what we do is once a year we have open gardens. This year, because of COVID, we had to delay that. But next year, assuming everything goes well, it's an opportunity for gardens to put their hands up and decide that they'll have their gardens open to the public. And we'll typically put together sort of a bio sheet and allow gardeners to open their gardens and have sort of a central information booth at the front, and invite the public in to come through and again, talk to gardeners about the gardens and about their own experiences. We typically have a monthly volunteer day, which is also open to the public. So hopefully again next year, between the months of April and October, there's a monthly opportunity on either a Saturday or a Sunday where members, as well as members of the public, we have some neighbors who like to come over, don't necessarily want to make the commitment to have a garden. Gardening is a lot of work, and so, but they do enjoy being in the neighborhood and coming over and helping with the gardens. It's an opportunity to come over and turn compost or help us clean up the gardens or build fences for a few hours every month.
And where can folks learn more? Is there a website to go to that you can
Yes, we do have a website, which is fenwayvictorygardens.org, and there's a lot of information in the website. One of our most frequently asked questions is, how do you get a garden?
Yep,
And so I will say that we have a fairly substantial wait list, as you can imagine, between the resurgence of interest in gardening and also the virus. I think a lot of people are hanging out closer to home, spending more time working virtually from home, and as a result seem to have a little bit more free time. They're not spending all that time commuting, or have a little bit more flexibility in their schedules. So we've seen a lot of gardeners that we haven't seen in the past during the week, coming and watering just during the day.
There's a gentleman right there, in fact, tending his zinnias,
Yes.
dahlias.
And so here's another beautiful garden. This garden was established just 2 years ago. And as you can see, lots of marigolds. There's a water feature here. The neighbor here had some gorgeous sunflowers, which the birds and the squirrels seem to really enjoy. And we have these little gardens, and you can see there's some purple asters there. It's one of the other plants that we're kind of enjoying at this time of the year. Lots of Shasta daisies.
And I see a lot of bees buzzing. Even though it's October, they're still hard at work.
A lot of bees. We've seen a lot of bumblebees this year. A lot of gardeners have noticed bumblebees on their plantings. I'm gonna take you for a walk down here because I did notice there are some beautiful dahlias in this garden. Hi there.
Hey, how are you?
Great. How are you doing? You've got some beautiful dahlias.
Oh, thanks.
Is this your first year?
This is
Putting-
our third year.
Wow. Gorgeous.
Thanks.
Really gorgeous. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Now this garden here is a second-year gardener. A couple of years ago, there was one of the cottonwoods was here, and unfortunately we lost the cottonwood. It died, but that was cleared, and she's been able to put in a beautiful vegetable garden. She's got some flowers in here too. She's got some Solomon seed, but she has some beautiful tomatoes and other plants in here. And as you can see, here's another dahlia, which is a lovely yellow color.
Now you mentioned that there's 500 plots here, and you're going to find your way like a pro. But how are these numbered or organized, or how would someone coming in find their way through?
That's a great question. So we have a central area at the front near the bulletin board, which is just off of Boylston Street, where Park Drive comes out. And the park itself, the gardens are divided into 4 quadrants. So we have the park section, which is here in the southwest corner. We have the Boylston section, which is the northwest corner. We're in the center south area, and center north is directly north of us toward the Richardson Bridge. There's a service road that goes all the way around the perimeter of the gardens. We don't have parking in the gardens, but there is some neighborhood parking, and we encourage folks to, if they're in town for the day, to take the T, either to Kenmore Square or to Huntington Avenue, and then just walk over. It's a quick walk. There are plenty of places to stop for coffee or stop to grab something to eat on the way, so it's a nice outing. This is the back side of the gardens, and as you can see, right now the Phragmites are covering the Muddy River a bit. This is going to be the phase 2 of the Muddy River Restoration Project, and in a few years this will be completely cleared. There will be native plantings, and we've already noticed since the Phragmites have been managed by the city of Boston, the last couple of years
viewers at home, mark your calendars for 2022 to enjoy an unobstructed view of the Muddy right here in the Back Bay Fens.
And you'll notice here, especially down here near the Richardson Bridge, there are a couple of blue heron that hang out and do some fishing on a regular basis. So we've got a couple of bird watchers who come through the gardens.
And are these compost piles? And what happens here?
Yes, they are. This is one of our 3 compost areas, and in a typical year, this is one of the tasks on our volunteer days. A number of our volunteers have already gone through it. As you can see, this is
The most organized compost I've ever seen.
It's extremely well done, and there are a couple of individuals here in Boylston section who took some time and put in their volunteer hours doing the compost. So it's one of the fun tasks. Folks love doing the compost.
And how does it end up? Does it go back into these gardens, or?
It is, well, they'll turn the compost once a month, and we don't turn it frequently enough for it to actually get hot enough to put any seeds or leaves in there. But we do turn it once a month just to keep it organized, and over the course of the winter, it does get sort of, the piles actually are pushed down. We actually had a bobcat come in and do some work in it in the springtime this year. So just kind of managing it and trying to keep it more organized. So gardeners will use the soil from the compost areas. What they typically do is they'll screen it. Hello.
Hello, goodbye.
Goodbye now. Have a good day. So it's something that it's funny. I was talking to a couple of gardeners who were sharing that they really missed the community participation days, and strangely enough, that was the one thing that they missed the most, was turning the compost. So we like to joke that we put all the first-year gardeners on the compost work, but did want to point out there is, we do have an herbs garden, which was established, and this is actually open to the public. So I'm going to open up the gate, and you'll see signs. I believe that we opened, Mayor Walsh was here to cut the ribbon for the herb garden opening back in, I think it was 2016. And you'll see this is like shrubby St. John's wort. Maybe about a month or so ago, this was completely covered with yellow blossoms, and the bumblebees were just incredible. Lots of goldenrod back here.
And is this lavender here in the middle?
Yes, it is. And as a matter of fact,
Very nice.
the lavender was cut just recently, maybe about a month or so ago. And we had a board member who actually shared the lavender with a number of gardeners. So we have a visitor here. I don't know what kind of bird it is, but we have, so you can see, this lemon balm. A lot of rue here as well. Just to talk a little bit about the butterflies, we had actually started a program where we were educating gardeners and sharing what it is we know about pollinators. And so over the course of the last few years, we've had gardeners plant both host plants as well as nectar plants to benefit our pollinators and especially the butterflies. So this year was not a big year for butterflies. We didn't see a lot of monarchs. I do have you know, we were still able to raise some monarchs and some black swallowtail butterflies. Black swallowtail butterflies are sort of very popular because they're extremely easy to raise compared to monarchs. So rue or anything in the carrot family, a lot of vegetable gardeners with carrots and parsley and dill, those are host plants for black swallowtail butterflies. So we're going to take a quick walk through here, and just want to show you some couple other unique spaces that we have. We're in the park section right now, and as you can see, there's some construction going on across the way. Fenway Park is across the way. So this is the main entrance that a lot of visitors use. So come in, we have a central bulletin board, and the flagpole is here. Here's entrance garden. Here is a developer who's going to be putting in a hotel on that space across the way. We were very fortunate that they made a donation to the gardens, and so once the building permit is issued, they were very interested in helping us organize our entrance gardens. So you'll notice that we've got a bunch of pollinator plants here already, and Verbena bonariensis. I love this plant. The butterflies love it too. It's very unique. It's also called verbena on a stick. And then of course the spider flowers, and some of the same, it looks like some of the feverfew is still, you see a little bit of feverfew is still in bloom. But this area is destined for the new project. Did want to point out to you, we do have some very creative gardeners. This is a relatively new gardener who has put in just a really beautiful space, and it's.
How long are you going to have her?
It is. This is the beautiful lilacs that he has in the springtime. He's got some wonderful plantings. I see that he's also cleaned up a bit before the winter. But this is, you know, it's just he's in his garden a lot, spends a lot of time here, and is one of our ambassadors in the gardens. So, did want to take you down just to show you a couple other spaces. So
Now, as we've been walking through, I've noticed some incredible trees,
yes,
and they're not necessarily in anybody's plots, so they're probably not being tended by any of the gardeners specifically, but who's taking care of the trees, and what are they bringing to the garden?
Thank you for bringing that up, because the trees are an important part of the Fenway Victory Gardens. You'll notice we have, as far as the gardens are concerned, we do have some park rules where gardeners are asked to keep their plantings to 5 feet. So as you take a look at the landscape, you'll see that there are trees that are well above the 5-foot limit, and those are trees that have been here for many years. When we were at the back of the gardens, you may have noticed the poplars, the cottonwoods, the population of hawks loves the cottonwoods, loves hanging out in the cottonwoods, and the trees are maintained by the city of Boston. So it is through funding. Actually, the last couple of years, largely because of funds that were available to us with the help of the Emerald Necklace Conservancy and City of Boston. We had our folks on our tree committee who collaborated, and everyone worked together to put together really a massive maintenance project. There was a substantial amount of pruning that took place in the winter of 2019. There's been more pruning that was done this year, and it was long overdue, and and really much needed. Trees require maintenance. It's not sort of a set it and forget it. So if you want your trees to be healthy, you do have to maintain them. You do have to spend time sort of, diagnosing if you see, hi there, if you see that there's a problem or potentially a problem. I will tell you that after the pruning that was done in early 2019, we had so many gardeners who are observant anyway, but had really noticed how much airier in the gardens looked, how much more light and air was getting into their respective gardens, and so their production was better, the gardens looked better, and we had less damage after a windstorm or after a big rainstorm. So that work on maintenance was really critical, given the fact that there hadn't been a big investment, there hadn't been a lot of work done in the gardens for quite some time. And this tree here had some significant work done to it. We've got a willow tree that was straight down from where the bulletin board is. That had some substantial maintenance on it too. So the tree canopy has never looked better. It's incredibly healthy right now compared to where we were a few years ago. So it's been a vast improvement in the gardens.
And I see that someone is growing some Halloween decor.
Hello,
Yes,
Liz.
that is.
Time for fall.
Hi, Richie.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How you doing?
I'll be right over. Okay.
Hi.
Hi there. Yes, we have we have a few Halloween decorations as well. We have in the past had sort of a little impromptu Halloween get-together in the herb garden. So we also, we're in the middle of the Fenway, so with all of the neighborhood groups and all the neighborhood organizations nearby, we tried to piggyback with some other organizations. The park is open from dawn to dusk, so there were some concerns about having folks invited into the gardens, especially when we don't really have any lighting here. And so in accordance with park rules, we kept it to the front of the gardens where there's some lighting, and it was great. It wasn't a huge crowd of people, but it was a lot of fun. And folks like this veteran gardener who lives nearby, he typically hangs out in his garden on the weekends and has some really wonderful stories historically, his experiences here in the gardens. So, and one more. Let's see if we can get through. So this is Park Drive, and as you can see, the gardens are accessible. I know you've asked me before about how the gardens were set up. It's in quadrants, and it is arranged by row. And several years ago, we went through and did a big tagging system so that we now know. We're going to take one more. We're going to go down O. We have a tagging system, so each garden has a little metal tag on it with both the row and the garden number, so that if we have gardeners who have needs, or if we're trying to meet up, or if it's just for security, and also so that we have a sense of where folks are in the gardens. 500 is especially with new folks who are coming on board on a regular basis, it's hard to keep track of where new people are going in. This is a new gardener. This is a really lovely garden, and these gardeners have only been here for 3 years. What they've done is created a little Zen garden. So, not sure whether you can take a peek in there, but it's really quite lovely.
Helps to be tall.
And sort of a secret garden here. Little.
Let's take a peek.
And so, also, here's a great pollinator garden. It seems like this gardener still has a lot of his pollinator plants. You can see he's also got a bird feeder up, so he's feeding the birds, and seems to have a little bit of everything in here. A couple of different types of marigolds, and like he has some spider flowers, and here's a beautiful Mexican sunflower, which is extremely popular with winter butterflies, and some tall zinnias, and it's been, I can always count on this garden being completely filled with flowers pretty much all year long. So he rotates. It seems like he has a lot of spring flowers. Typically has a lot of coreopsis, and as you can see, there's actually this beautiful assortment of zinnias.
So we're hearing sirens and cranes, and we know that we're in the middle of a city, but there's such a wonderful respite and growing opportunity here. And for folks who might be inspired by this to start a garden of their own at home while they wait to join the wait list here, what would you recommend are a couple easy ways to get started with container plants or balcony gardens?
Sure. Container gardening. There is, I know that I've seen, there are a lot of YouTube videos on how people can do container gardening, whether they have a window box or a small patio or even a windowsill inside their place. It's really easy to get started. There's a lot of stuff out in the market right now. Not just learning, but there are some things that you can do hands-on. So learning how to get seeds to germinate, knowing how to put the right amount of water on plants. So there's a lot that they can do just to learn and to get some plants started at home. One of the popular things to do is to grow some herbs. Herbs are fairly easy to grow. And they do extremely well indoors or on a sunny windowsill. We encourage people. It's amazing that we have quite a few gardeners who have started putting tomato plants in sort of the grow bags. It doesn't require a lot of space. It doesn't require a lot of soil. So basically, you just need a little bit of space outdoors, and you're able to get a nice plant of tomatoes. If you have something like a sun gold, which is really a prolific cherry tomato, you'll have tomatoes pretty much for at least a month and a half or so. So we encourage people to do that. There's also, again, we have instances where we have invited folks to come in for volunteer days. They talk to gardeners. As I said, some of these garden spaces are relatively large. We have some gardeners, including some neighbors, who have asked for help. So just as an example, last year we had a big volunteer event. One of the local companies had sent over 70 volunteers to just do some community work, and it was a half a day of work, and we paired them up with a few elders in the gardens, and we had several people come back to us and say, is it okay if you gave me the name of that gardener because I'd like to come and help her more frequently. So we have opportunities like that where, again, folks don't have, they don't have the time to take care of a garden the entire growing season, but they love being able to come in. Gardeners share their combinations with them, and so they're able to come out and have a little peace and quiet and maybe do some gardening on their own as well. So we do have opportunities for that as well. Trying to think of one of the other questions that we get all the time is what happens in the winter time. And the gardens are open 365 days a year. So dawn to dusk, 365 days a year. We don't come through and plow, but what you will notice, and there's a monarch butterfly sailing past. What you will notice is, even though there is cool weather, gardeners still like to come out and check on their gardens. We have a number of gardeners who like to just sit outdoors, and we have a number of gardeners who are also feeding the birds, so refilling their bird feeders and just being outside. You mentioned some of the horns and the sirens. Once you're in the gardens, it's funny, there's some background noise, but the wonderful part about it is you can really get lost in the gardens. It's just a unique experience having this kind of space and this kind of community right in the middle of a city in the heart of Fenway. So I think to a person, when visitors come in and talk to gardeners, they have great experiences. I'll just end by telling you one story. I had a young couple who had a garden, and they contacted us in June and said, we just want to let you know we're moving to Denver. Wanted to give you a heads up. We know that it's going to be a month before we leave, but wanted to make sure that you're aware of it, and we want to make sure that we had the opportunity to say goodbye. And then he told me a story that his wife was expecting. They were moving out to Denver. He had a new job, so new chapter. And he mentioned to me that it was in the garden at the start of the pandemic that they learned that she was expecting, and he hadn't been able to actually go to the ultrasound, but the doctor had put the gender in an envelope, and they had opened the envelope in their garden. That's how special this space was to them. Last year, I think we had 3 engagements in the garden. So there's a lot going on in the gardens.
There's a lot of things growing here, not just plants.
Yes, there are.
Well, thank you for sharing that wonderful story and for sharing this beautiful afternoon with us. We invite everyone again to visit your website.
Yes, fenwayvictorygardens.org.
And while you visit the Fenway Victory Gardens, take a look around in the Back Bay fence. Check out what Emerald Necklace Conservancy is up to at www.emeraldnecklace.org. And thank you, Elizabeth. We'll see you in the parks.
Thank you so much.